And we're live. Welcome back to another Gimbal Weekly Update. We've got Keith Tyner rocking a great ball cap there.
Good morning, Amanda. It's good to see you.
Good morning, Doug. How are you doing? Oh my gosh, wow.
Well, I thought since Keith was gonna, wear a hat today, I would switch from winter time over to summertime here.
There you go.
Good morning,
That's a good
everybody.
look. And Debbie, hey.
Good morning. I don't have a hat today, and I'm really needing a haircut, so I have 2 more weeks before I get to do that. So,
well, thanks to you all for joining this morning. And some of you have been wondering why Debbie leaves, and she has been working so hard. She is our lead operations person, and we got to kick her off for 2 reasons. 1, so she can answer your emails while we're doing this, and 2, because we need someone behind the scenes too to kind of give us some input on what it looks like from the other side. So thanks for all your hard work, Debbie. We are so thankful for you.
sure.
Thanks, Debbie.
I'm going to start off with the
You're welcome.
disclaimers. So our compliance people are going to be super happy. I should have had that up earlier, but my apologies. All right, content provided at this event is for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Any performance reference is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Any economic forecast set forth during the event may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that any strategy will be successful. These thoughts and opinions are those of Gimbal Financial and do not represent the views of LPL Financial. Securities offered through LPL Financial are a member of FINRA and SIPC. Investment advice offered through Gimbal Financial, a registered investment advisor and separate entity from LPL. They'll be happy about that.
Nice work. Well, it's great to have everybody back today, and happy Friday. It's the first Friday of June, and first are always great things. The first day of the year is always a rejuvenating thing. The first day of a month can be the same way. And so we're just excited to be here. We're looking back and very grateful for what's transpired for the first half of 2020, even amongst the chaos. There's been a lot of highlights amongst Gimbal, our employees, and you. And you've shared a lot of the highlights, a lot of the joys that you've experienced over this year. And so we want to thank you in advance for that. We had a great team meeting the other day and just recapped some of these things. And so we are very appreciative of you. And this webinar that we've been doing for the last, I don't know, is this our 8th one? I don't know how many this is, but it's been a real joy to do it with you and keep you up to date on what's going on in markets and provide some thoughts along the way. And I was reflecting about this time this morning and just thinking, every time we have a big dip in the market, I always think this is the craziest stock market I've ever seen in my life. And Keith, you've seen stock markets since what? How long have you been doing this?
I got interested in them in the 1970s as a teenager, and I got vocationally involved since 1986. So it's been a couple of years. So I've seen a little bit of everything. And
yeah,
I was just reflecting. I told you before this, Doug, this chart behind me goes all the way back to 1900 and shows some of the historical events. And I think the world and the economy has like a 1970s kind of feel about it. People are anxious and unrest, but it just seems like a deja vu of 1970s. But we'll see. I mean, things cycle, right?
Yeah, things cycle. 1970s. So does that mean Amanda's going to start wearing bell bottoms into work? Is that when you wore bell bottoms?
I had a leisure suit. I don't know about bell bottoms.
Leisure suit.
You made me admit that in public. That's kind of, it was forest green.
First client who wears a leisure suit into the office gets one of Keith's books.
Oh, we got more than that. We got a bonus for him. We'll take him to lunch with the leisure suit, won't we?
But yeah, it has just been wild. Back in late February when we started taking action because of markets. I never would have dreamt that we'd be knocking on the door of new highs with the NASDAQ. Can you believe that? And so I thought we'd just take a look again, like we always do every week, and look at the markets, see where we are, and recap the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, and then small company stocks. And again, like Keith pointed out last week, when we say small company, we're not talking about my son's lawn mowing business. These are major businesses that are scattered all over the place. So I'll go ahead and dive in and share my screen with you. We'll take a look at markets together. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the NASDAQ. And again, think of the NASDAQ as this is a very large group of stocks, 3,000 plus stocks. With an emphasis on technology, there's healthcare, there's biotech companies here. But this is a large group of stocks. And when we look back, reduce this. There we go. When we look back, what's that high say? 98.38? Does that sound right?
Looks about right.
And today we are at 97.01. It's unbelievable. And one of the best things about stocks is stocks really don't care what our opinions are. They don't care what religion you are. They don't care where you're from. They don't care what color skin you are. They are unbiased. and so stocks will do their own thing. And our goal here at Gimbal is to learn more and more and recognize patterns, recognize signals that tell us to either bend towards safety or look more opportunistically towards risk. And so you might see this V-shaped recovery here that I'm showing you with my cursor. This V-shaped recovery is very, very rare. And I can remember back near the bottom, 66.31, Keith and I were looking at markets and we were looking at opportunities. And a lot of times when recovery happens, it may happen for 2, 3, 4 days, and then it can sell off again. I think it's 70% of the time you test a new low. And with the NASDAQ, it just didn't. It just took right back off. And so the NASDAQ has been just very strong. And as you can see, we're approaching new highs on the NASDAQ. Keith, you had some real flavorful comments last week when we talked about the volume, which is basically just the pace at which buyers or sellers are making their decisions. And we had a lot of very high volume going back to late February through really the bottom into late March. And then coming back, this real strong right part of the chart, the volume hasn't been as strong. Anything else that you've noticed on the NASDAQ?
Well, you know, if you take your cursor over there, Doug, where the 50-day average crosses down below the 200-day, this red line coming down right there, that's saying the short-term trend of the market is downward. Well, you could see this V-shaped market already trumped that. It had already turned the tide, and so it didn't even have 50 days to kind of reset itself. And then this past week, you see where that red line crossed back over the black line is saying that the trend is upward. And normally when I've seen those in the past, when that crossover happens, it could indicate that this has got a long ways to go. And then one other observation, if you pull your cursor down to the far right, the very last volume bar right there, yesterday, and we can see this on both the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, yesterday's what we refer to as a distribution day. That yesterday was a day where big sellers were coming to the market to take profits. And one of the things we watch for is a lot of those days stacking up in a short period of time. We'll probably be more apt to take some profits if we see those things get up around 4 or 5 days inside of a month. And that was the second one we've had on the NASDAQ, and we had one on the S&P 500 yesterday as well.
Yeah, that's a great observation there. And if you want to learn more about distribution days or how we decide to sell, always feel free to reach out to us, email, call us. We'd be happy to talk with you about it. But yeah, unbelievable that there have been so many days in a row without distribution days. And so it's good to see some profits being taken. We'll switch over to the S&P 500. S&P 500 has had a really big week, and it went ahead and pushed through its 200-day, and it's been climbing ever since. And so that's been very positive to see. The overall breadth of the economy hasn't really been affected yet because the stocks are leading the way. And this is the general grouping of stocks. You're going to have oil stocks in here. You're going to have financial stocks. You're going to have some energy stocks. And those sectors just have not done well for a long time, but they're starting to emerge. They're starting to show some traction. And that's why you're seeing the S&P 500 perform and go above its 200-day moving average. So that's been an exciting thing to see. Looking at small company stocks. Oops. You can see again that we've had a lot of strength inside the small caps and had good price movement in the last few days. It's pushing up near its 200-day moving average, which we would really like to see it go beyond that, just like we did with the S&P 500 in the last week. Any color there, Keith?
Well, both the S&P 500, I think a couple of weeks ago we were talking about on our show that we really were wanting to see what happened on the 500 once it got to that 200-day moving average, because sometimes, you know, I pointed out, if you look over to the left of the screen and you see that 28.22 and that 28.55 where the 200-day moving average works as kind of a trampoline or a floor, sometimes on the way up it acts as a ceiling. And so we were really curious to see what it was going to do. And it came out like the boss, right? It just said, we were going, no matter how pessimistic you are, we are still going up. And then now if you go back to the S&P 600, Doug, it's got the 200-day moving average still in front of it. And it's been showing, I can't remember which week we showed where we were kind of getting really interested in it. 2 or 3 weeks ago, Doug. It's probably around that purple line or whatever the color line that is there. I think right there is where we were saying this is really getting interesting, and it's had a pretty big run. And the other thing to pay attention with these small companies is they got their faces punched in a lot harder than the other companies did. That thing dropped from 1,050 to 577. That is a horrible drop. And as investors, you have to pay attention, I think, to percentages. I saw one research thing I was reading last week said the S&P was down 33% on its low, and it had already bounced back 33%. Well, if you go back to the S&P 500, Doug, you see that 33% low from that peak to the trough. Well, last week it said it was up 33% from the low, but that still left you 10 or 15% off the high. And so the math can work against you. You think, well, I'm up 33%. Well, I'm still down because I let all that happen and get away from me. So just really interesting.
Yeah, and that's one of the moves that really motivates us to protect the capital on the downside, so that we have enough dry powder to ease you back into the market as we see positive things happening. Well, great. Well, it's been an amazing stock market. You know, I've only walked through a few of these. I started in 1998. I can remember the tech bubble in 2000, and in 2001 to 2003 was pretty tough. Of course, everybody remembers 08, but this has just been an unbelievable time, and it's a great time to be a student of the stock market. And so we continue to learn. I'm just as excited as ever to learn about the stock market. And I know Keith is feeling the same way. We are investing a lot of time every day in studying the stock market. And I want to give a shout out too to some of our third-party people who have been helping us. I mean, we subscribe to a lot of research, and our research partners have just been great in helping us understand the markets for risk and opportunity. And so it's just been an unbelievable time. Amanda, you had something on your mind. I forget what it was. I get all caught up in the stock market and I forget. Tell me what you're thinking.
Well, I was just thinking about how this is the first time in my career that I've experienced a market like this. It really wasn't too long ago that I was in college, and in no way sorry guys, it might offend some of you or age you, but I was in 8th grade when when 08 happened. So this is the first time. I'm just excited to hear your guys' intake and learn. And the one thing that it did bring me back to is I really was in college only 4 years ago, and I came across this video. If you guys have a moment today, I don't know if it's because I'm like a total daddy's girl or if my dad's a hashtag girl dad, but if you guys Google dad talking to his daughter at college through a Ring doorbell, it'll make your day. We've talked about how like we're communicating differently and how a lot of change has adapted through this time, but this dad is so cute. Every time he walks into the door, he says, "Hey Emily, hope your day's going well," because he knows that she's watching him on the Ring doorbell app on her phone. And it's a good little pick me up, and it'll give you a good laugh. It's totally innocent and cute, but if you guys check that out, feel free.
So if we just type that into the World Wide Webs.
Yeah, the Google, whatever you want to call it.
Dad talking to daughter through Ring doorbell.
Yeah, should be the first video that pops up. I just searched it myself not too long ago, but I would play the whole thing here, but I think it's about 3 minutes, and I know our time's better spent just chatting. But if you guys take a look at that, I'll try to post it on the Facebook page too to just make easy access to people. But yeah,
that's a good word, Amanda. I appreciate that. And there are so many little joys out there. I think the more and more that we get out and the more and more loosening up we can be, we're going to see some of these little joys just because of relationship. And and so I think that there's a lot of good things ahead of us, and thankfully it's summertime. It's good weather to get out. Keith and I were talking this week about some changes that have been, they've been under development for a couple months now, and that's about it, but they've been so influential to what's going on in the real world. And Keith, what do you want to do? How do you want to start us off on that?
Well, I am thankful for our entire team, Debbie, Amanda, you, and Amanda has a unique way of allowing me to place myself in the time spectrum. So
it's not on purpose. I can't help my age.
Yeah, it's funny because I was listening to some training this morning, and this guy that I really like, Arusha, made this comment. I don't know if you all saw the SpaceX launch last weekend or not. And this is what Arusha said that was like Amanda's comment. He said, "When I was young, we watched space shuttle launches." And I just started laughing because I know some of our listeners watched things before the Apollo launch, right? Like when I was young, I watched the Apollo launches. And then when I was a young professional like Amanda, I watched the space shuttle launches. And so now we have the SpaceX, but we all have those points in times and those things that are transitionary to us. And one of those space shuttle launches, I was actually living in Houston when it exploded, and it was pretty traumatic. And it was one of those things where I remember where I was when this thing happened, right? And the coronavirus is probably going to be one of those I remember when things. And prior to March, I don't know, Doug, I think one of the themes we were watching below the water level was the 5G, fifth generation cell providers and what that's going to do to technology. And there's some other sub-themes and themes that we were thinking about. But I think the coronavirus just took the whole economy and shook it up like a Yahtzee thing and threw it all out on the table. And so everything is changing, right? And so that could scare you to death, or you could say, how is this going to impact us? And that's kind of, I think, what we're looking at. And I broke it down into kind of like some major themes. I thought we could just banter back and forth. Like, how has this changed work life? How has this changed home life? How has this changed travel life, celebrations, medical, and exercise? How are those things changing? And that's how I think investors make money, rather than saying, I don't like this. Like, if I don't like this, if you say that, then the world goes on past you, right? And the stock market is the leading indicator of what's going to go on in the economy. So this morning they announced that there were 2.1 million new unemployment claims. So you could go, oh, look at that. But they also announced there's 3.9 million people dropped off the unemployment line, so that the unemployment number is already coming down. And so things are changing, and if you aren't looking forward and you're looking backwards, you're going to get left behind. So any of those topics jump out at you want to banter about a little bit, Doug?
Well, because I live this leisureless life, I who doesn't like adventure and leisure life? Bicycles are close to my heart, always have been. It's a fountain of youth. Anybody wants to go on a bike ride, you just call me and we'll do a meeting and a bike ride. But with bicycles, it's been very interesting. Think back to prior February. Folks who wanted to get some activity in, they were coming off January. They've got a new resolution to lose, 19 pounds, whatever it is. And they were hitting the gym memberships hard, and they were committed. Well, those gym memberships, you couldn't go, you couldn't lift, you couldn't walk, you couldn't do the stair stepper. And so at home workouts became very popular. One of my friends owns a bicycle shop here in Indianapolis, and he also has a fitness side. He told me that within days they sold out of dumbbells. He had never had a problem, supply and demand problem on dumbbells until now. So he sold his dumbbells. The other thing that he told me was working really well were the Peloton bikes. Now, he doesn't sell Peloton bikes, but he told me that because people aren't going to gyms and have their memberships open right now, people were having a Peloton bike delivered to their house, signing up and working out there. He also mentioned that the entry-level bicycle sales have just gone through the roof. And so not the high end or even the medium, but just the entry level, hey, honey, we need to get outside. Let's get a bike. Those sales have just been amazing. And so these are areas of the economy that are having positive impact, and not just here in the US. Most bicycles are manufactured in Taiwan these days. And so that helps out the global and the emerging economies. That's been my favorite area amongst COVID to see some growth in.
Well, I would throw out, I have been a skeptic of higher education for quite a while. Not that I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that its costs have gone up with the advent of internet faster than inflation. And to me, that never made any sense, that if you're higher education, you should be taking the tools of today, integrating them and being able to lower the cost. And I think this can be a really difficult time for higher education organizations, because the idea that I want to go to college isn't necessarily just to go to college to get an education. I know Amanda went to college just for the education, but somebody else on this conference call went there for the social part of it, right? I'm not pointing any fingers anywhere. But if you send me an email as a student and tell me that I'm not going to be socializing at college, you've lost your differentiation from just going to University of Phoenix online or whatever. Like, there's no reason for me to be having allegiance to a particular university if they don't have that component of it. And so it's gonna be a real challenge for those places because there are good and bad professors, and a online bad professor is going to be extremely boring, right? And so, and I don't know how online schools work, but I would think you could fire a boring professor on an online school and they become your employee, which they really are if you're the student. So we were just having a conversation last night with my daughter, who's going to be a junior in college, that they sent out the email telling her what this next year is looking like. And she's saying to me, I may just take a skip, what do they call it? A skip year or
a gap year.
Gap year. And it's the economics that were driving her to think that way. And so, so then here Casey is learning to think like an adult based on what before was just told to the student, this is what you do. And I don't think she's alone in that thought process.
No.
So yeah, so the education system probably is going to work its way down to even your kids, Doug and Amanda, with the way your future kids will be educated. It's going to be different. And so as investors, it just makes sense to pay attention to those trends.
Yeah, no, that's great. And all you have to do is walk around a campus and you see the amount of money being spent on infrastructure for the social experience.
Yeah.
And the online schools, they just don't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, go Casey. I think she's on the right track.
She's working it. Well, why don't we throw out a couple more of these next week, because we're kind of running towards the end of our time here, but maybe just what do they call it, a rapid fire thing? Throw out a couple things in 30 seconds or less each, Doug, that you think is interesting going on in the economy.
Well, I can tell you this, speaking of travel and leisure life, I mean, I think we're all itching to break out of our homes. We're itching to do things differently. And, airline stocks, cruise stocks, I think during this time, it's going to be tough on them. And because, let's say my family and I want to travel west, we don't know if the parks are going to be open. We don't know if there's going to be any restrooms. And so I'm probably more inclined to stick around home, spend some money here, and maybe take a staycation and travel around Indiana, go to a park here, or just get out and take the family out to eat for a whole week. And so I think there are some big changes that are going to happen in the summer season of travel.
Well, and I was like, in the future, if we do this, we could pull up some stocks and show how the stock market is telling you what's going on, right? Like if you pulled up the major cruise lines and the major airlines, their stock prices is telling you what's going on, right? And one of my favorite hobbies, if you pull up their stock prices, they would tell you most people aren't staying home anymore. They are getting on their RV or their trailer and they're heading wherever. There's a shortage of trailers out there now. And so just paying attention to what's going on, if you just look at the stock price and say, why is Thor Industries going up? Well, go look on the interstate, see what's driving down the road, right?
It's like the Peloton bike. You can take matters into your own hands.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I got one, I got to go.
Don't go buy Peloton stock, by the way. That is not an endorsement. These are not endorsements.
Nor Thor. Don't buy Thor. You missed the boat.
Disclaimer, disclaimer.
Yeah. It's gone. Don't buy the, don't buy. All right. I've got 2 books to give away. You guys scooped those up last week like lightning. This thing, Popular Economics, is probably I'm trying to peddle an economics book. We will send this to you. It's not boring. It tells you.
It's a good book. I enjoyed that book.
It tells you why LeBron James should not go play football. It explains it in economics terms. So it's an interesting book. Popular Economics, first person to ask for it, it'll come to you in the mail sometime. This one, the man that had most influence on me is a friend named Bob Warren. And Bob was influenced by a guy named Major Ian Thomas. And this was a book written by Major Ian Thomas. It's called The Saving Life of Christ. It's been probably 25 years since I read it. It must have influenced me because I kept it on the bookshelf and the pages are yellow, but we'll send it out as well. Those are my 2 books this week, Doug. I'm trying to get rid of things.
Good work. Hey, Thursdays are for quitting. So don't forget, friends, if if you haven't quit something a while, it is time to quit something. This week, I deleted the Facebook app off my phone. I got to get rid of stuff too. And so keep up the good work out there.
All right, you guys have a great weekend, and we hope you'll join us again next week.
Yeah. Bye,
Tell
guys.
a friend.
Bye, guys.
Bye.